Hi everybody, it's Marcus Collins and special guest this evening,
Andrew Dixon.
From the MA Properties team. Here we are this evening. We're going to do a buyer's masterclass on how to succeed in today's competitive virtual housing market. So, why do we do these? Well, buying and selling is, I guess put my cursor over there, buying and selling really too important to leave to chance. So we want to make sure that we educate both our buyers and our sellers, because we do both sellers and buyers masterclasses, about what's happening in the market and how to succeed, be they buying to buy a home, be they selling to get top dollar for their home. So this evening, I'm going to do a quick overview of the market, smart decisions if you like. Won't take too long over that. Then we'll go into the process, how to go about buying, how to work out what your criteria are, those kind of things, two different strategies to look at with the buying process, how to search, how to find that needle in a haystack, that home that very much fits your requirements. And then we'll give you a quick overview of the offer process. Not in too much detail, there's a lot to it, but just to give you an overview of the key steps within the offer process. And then we'll finish up with a little bit of a discussion around, so how is buying today when COVID is still around? We're recording this in March, versus what it was in 2019 if you've been looking for a home for that long. So, first thing, smart decisions. It's relatively easy to get information today, but what's much more difficult to get is an in-depth analysis about what's happening in the market. So let me give a shameless plug for our market reviews. We do these, here they are. That's the Lexington one, that's the Arlington one, if I can get it right. We do these every year, so they're an annual event for us. We push them out in January. So if you are watching this and you live in either Lexington or Arlington, you should have got these in the mail. If you didn't get it in the mail, or you're not living in those two towns, reach out to us and we will send you one of these. It's also available electronically on our website. Jam-packed full of information about what's happening in the market, together with a lot of analysis of the market too. But let me give you a quick summary in terms of what happened in 2020 with COVID. Overall, we saw a similar number of sellers in the market. COVID affected the market in that March, April timeframe. But once we were out of that initial period, buyer confidence returned, sellers brought their home on the market. And it was almost, with the exception of the logistics of buying homes, showing homes, business as usual in terms of the real estate market. What is true though, that we saw an increase in the number of buyers in the market. If you think about, we'll talk about it in a moment, how what buyers' criteria are, they shifted slightly perhaps to a less emphasis on the commute, bigger emphasis on a larger home as they're working from home. So we saw a kind of shift in buyer requirements. We also saw a large number of buyers, more than we would historically have seen coming into the market. So it really shifted from 2019, where we were discussing a downturn, in fact, where we were saying it was going to be a softening seller's market, into a seller's market in 2020. Positive price appreciation. One exception to this somewhat is the condo market. Sort of a little bit of a downturn in the condo market later on in the year as a lot of condos came on, but buyers were a little bit hesitant with that shared space, much more inclined to look at single family than they were at condominiums. Conversely of that, of course, a condominium is in general cheaper than a single family. And so they were a little bit torn between, yes, it's more affordable, but I have to live with some shared space. So it's not all over, of course. We're still working our way through the pandemic. We're working our way through any economic downturn that may be repercussions of this. We also need to see when the vaccinations will happen and so on. So there's a lot happening. So when we turn our attention to 2021, what do we think is going to happen? Firstly, if we separate it by buyers and sellers, there are a lot of buyers in the market at the end of 2020 which were not successful. There just wasn't enough inventory for them. And so we anticipate we will see increased or a large number of buyers in the market in 2021 looking to buy those homes. In terms of sellers, roughly similar to what we saw in 2020, which was very similar to what we saw in 2019. Not more sellers in the market. If you think about many sellers, they're either looking to move up, competition for the home they want to move into, or downsize, competition with the home they want to move into. So we didn't see a large increase in the number of sellers in the market. So similar number of sellers to what we saw in 2020, increased buyer demand. So a strong market is what we anticipate in 2021, which when you think about it from a buyer's perspective, which we're discussing this evening, that means you need to be able to compete and know how to compete in what is going to be an increasingly competitive market as we kind of roll out into the full spring market of 2021. So that's smart decisions. That's a little bit of an overview of what's happening in the market. Lots more information in the market review, as well as videos that we pushed out. In fact, I pushed one out recently that talked about an in-depth look at the Lexington market and the Arlington market. So check out our website, check out our blog. You will see all of those there. So enough from me, because I've talked about the market and I talked recently all about it. Let's hand over to Andrew to take us through smart process and how do you figure out exactly what I'm looking for. That's kind of a crux of this buyer seminar piece.
Right. Well, thank you, Marcus. I think being a buyer right now, as you mentioned, is very challenging. So it's really, and this is why we're doing this right now, this buy for buyers. It's not only is it always important, we feel, and we're going to explain why, to have a buyer's agent, but certainly now that there are more competition in the market and multiple offers on homes and all that's going on, it just really amplifies how important it is to have a good buyer's agent working for you. Okay, so we're looking at let me back up. First, we'll just talk about when we first start working with a buyer. There's sort of like three main categories that we want to start out talking about, and a lot of times it's the commute to work, and it had been, of course, proximity to Boston or public transportation or wherever your work was. School system, if you're planning to have kids, you already have kids. That's always an important factor in it, and of course affordability. And when we talk about that, it's knowing what you can afford to get, but also knowing what your budget is. That doesn't mean you want to spend everything you can afford. We got to make sense of how that works for you. And I'll back up, and of course commute's important, but I think that sort of is now maybe shifted to location, because a little bit in a sense that maybe you don't have to commute into Boston, or maybe you do, but maybe not as often. So commute, location, I'm going to sort of use those terms.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to describe it, right?
Right.
Schools is immutable. There's always a focus on the schools, I think.
Always a focus on the schools, and there seems to always be a direct correlation with the price of homes, price of a community, based on how the school system is thought of or ranked or rated. And but it's not for everyone. Maybe if you're downsizing, or you're not planning to have kids, or maybe you have kids that are going to go to a private school, then maybe that's less important. But certainly we're going to weigh all these criteria and trying to help you find out. But first we have to just sort out the basics and what's really a priority for you. Right. And by doing that, then we move on to really, you get a list of items here, but some of them are actual needs, and some of them may feel like needs, but they're really wants. And so what are your must-haves? Is it really a commute time anymore? Is it the school system? Of course it is. There's a minimum number of bedrooms you're going to want. There's a number of bathrooms. Do you need a garage? Do you prefer a garage? Maybe you'll sacrifice a garage to live in a certain location or area. Do you need an office now? That's on the list here, because a lot of people are working from home. So maybe before you needed 3 bedrooms, but hey, let's look for a 4-bedroom or a 3+, because I'm going to set up a home office. And so really, what we really want to do is to make sense of what's realistic and what you really need, and then hopefully get the other things that you want that are on that list. We also talk about how important it is to have all decision makers involved in this process. So not just one person. If you're a couple and you're going to move into a home, or even if you have kids, I think it's important to keep people involved in the process so that they're aware of what's going on. Everyone's happy with the decision that you're making. The other thing is sometimes there are other people who are involved in helping with the financing. Maybe they're helping you with the down payment or some way. So anyone who's financially involved, it's good to keep them in the process the whole way, because certainly what you don't want to do is come in at the last second and find a home you want, especially in a market like this, and then have someone you're dependent on financially to help make this process move forward, to then say, suddenly, put the brakes on for some reason, or cause a hiccup, and then suddenly the opportunity is missed. So really, if you keep everyone involved in the process the whole way, then everyone's informed, everyone's educated, and everyone's on board with the decision, and it enables you to make that decision that you need to make in a timely fashion. Right.
And you touched before about budget. I think that's a really important one, establishing your budget. Absolutely.
So obviously, the way to do that is to work with a good lender. And if you have one, that's great. If you do not, a good agent will have a list of lenders that they've had past clients work with, that they've had a good rapport with, and really just knew what they were doing. And so, for instance, we have lists like this of people we would like to recommend to folks and pass it on. So once you have that pre-approval, then you really know what you can afford to buy. That's one thing. But then from that point, then maybe you then make a decision on how much of that you want to spend, right? And the other reason you want to have this is submitting offers. Unless you're a cash buyer and you have, there are a few, but unless you have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in the bank, you need to have, when you submit an offer, a pre-approval from a lender, because the sellers, of course, need to know that you're a legitimate buyer. So, and when you work with a good lender, then they're going to help you through the process. So I should mention, there are pre-approvals and pre-qualifications we mentioned here. And what is the difference? Well, a pre-qualification is basically you're calling someone up, you're verbally giving them some information about you, and based on what they hear, they're going to give you a pre-qualification. So based on what you tell them, versus a pre-approval is a much more in-depth process where you're actually passing on information. And even I've had some clients who actually go through the whole underwriting process ahead of time. So it is pre-approved, but in fact, really all they really need at that point is an appraisal to work on a home. And so that's another step that really can not only help you as a buyer understand what you can do, but also tells the seller, gives them confidence that you're a good buyer for their home.
Right.
Okay. What else should we move on to? So once, we'll move forward. So once if let's say you get an offer accepted, right? So you do still have a period of time to look for a mortgage. So there's no obligation to use anyone that we've recommended to you. Or if you're not happy with it, or maybe you can get a better rate somewhere else. Different lenders have different portfolios that they work with. Maybe a bank might, in one circumstance, may have a better rate for what you're looking. So we look at all those variables and try to establish what's best for the buyer and move forward from there. Another reason to do that is then you can actually take a good look at, like, what does my spending power get me? And how much you're probably renting if you're doing that, or maybe you're switching homes. But let's say you're renting, we can look at the cost of what you're spending on a rent versus what you can buy in a home, and then we can look at, and you can show how that appreciates over time, and how you could probably afford something instead of renting that will appreciate.
Right. I think an important point you mentioned was you don't necessarily, and perhaps you don't want to, spend up to your pre-approval limit. It's a competitive market, and if pushing yourself to your pre-approval limit, you're struggling with how much you can get, perhaps you're going to borrow 85, 90%, you'll become less competitive with somebody who's borrowing 80%.
Absolutely.
So be cautious about pushing yourself to the limit. That may not necessarily make you a more successful buyer or a more competitive buyer in this market. So look closely at what you can afford, but also factor in that being that 95, we've seen recently a 95% borrow in this market. That's tough because there's a certain amount of risk in terms of somebody who's 95 borrowing 95% versus somebody who's 80%. So don't feel you need to go to that. max of your pre-approval, maybe scale it back a little bit for a whole raft of reasons. But if nothing else, it makes you look a little bit more competitive, or in fact, even a little stronger in this market.
I was just going to say, yeah, definitely you would look stronger to the potential seller. And, we're in a market now where, as you know, we're seeing a lot of multiple offers and properties that are going for over asking. And lenders then, I mentioned this before, in order to give you the loan, then they send out for an appraisal of the property. And if the property is not appraising for the amount that it is ultimately sold for, and you have a 95% loan versus
an 80%,
then an 80%, then they may not be able to do that loan. And if that's the max, then that's going to be a problem for you.
Yeah. So think about scaling that back. Don't feel like you have to buy as much as the bank will lend you.
Correct.
In fact, there are many circumstances where scaling it back's a good idea.
Right.
A lot about budget. We've got a little bit more to talk about finance in a minute. But first of all, I think it probably makes sense to kind of tease out what is the role of the buyer's agent, specifically in the context of what's the difference between a buyer's agent and a listing agent.
Right. Well, I think it probably sounds obvious when I say it, but you really have to really understand this, that a listing agent is working for the best interest of the seller. So they're obligated to do the best they can for them. So my role for a buyer then is to do the exact same thing. I work for the buyer. I try to get the best price, the best terms, and I also look out for your best interest. We talk about what you're looking for. We did it ahead of time, but there's sort of three. I think we'll get into all these steps too. But getting into overall, what happens is, especially early on, we have a lot of experience, and we bring that and we share that with you so that you, as a buyer, can make the best decision going forward, right? We educate you on the market, whichever market you're looking at. Sometimes you're looking at 1, 2, 3 towns, maybe more, and to kind of get through that process, you want to feel good about your decision. I want you to feel good about that decision. So we're making the best move for you. And then the second piece is we manage the whole offer process. And a lot of people, oh, you just fill out a form. Well,
if only it were that easy.
If
right?
only it were that easy. Yes,
right.
Yes, we do help write offers, but it's a 1-page offer or a 2-page offer, and it may seem pretty simple, but in fact, there's a lot in there, and a lot goes into that, and sort of having an understanding. Especially in this market where a seller might be looking at anywhere from 4 to 10 offers sitting in front of them or more, what's the perspective of the seller? What are they looking for, and how can you present your best offer to that seller in order to get it accepted? And that's one of the critical things we do, is to try and make it an easy decision for the seller to choose your offer. And then if it is accepted, then we want to manage that whole process afterwards, because you have things like an inspection. You have to get to a purchase and sale agreement, and then all the way to the closing. And how many steps are there in this whole process?
A lot,
or
right?
how long?
Yeah,
right?
We've kind of standardized it into a transaction. There's a lot of steps. By the time you throw everything in, we're at about 50 or 60 steps to get there. And it's really the job of the buyer's agent to kind of steer you through that to make sure that you meet all the deadlines. That's a key process of the buyer's agent.
Very critical to meet all those deadlines, and just to understand everything ahead of time so that you're prepared to meet those deadlines as well. So we sort of we research the areas you're interested in. We know those markets. We study them. We share that information with you. Maybe some place needs some fixing up or something. So we have resources to help people make a decision that's, maybe I can buy this because this really means I can hire a contractor and for short money to make this the place I want. The other thing we need to understand too is when you work with a buyer's agent, the commission that a buyer's agent makes is paid from the proceeds of the sale. It comes from the listing side in a sense, right?
So the seller, if you like.
Seller,
yeah. The seller pays.
The seller pays. So that contract is already set with the listing agent to compensate a buyer's agent. So no worries on.
So that's the buyer's agent.
Yes.
What about the other side of this coin?
Okay.
Because we often get the question,
yes,
should I work with the listing agent?
Well, if you want to sell your house, absolutely.
Right, that's true.
Right. But if you're looking to buy, and I think a lot of people have this conception, well, if I go directly to the listing agent, well, like they might save some commission, they might choose me. Well, that's not really how it works. As I mentioned earlier, a listing agent is obligated to work in the best interest of the seller, which is not your best interest.
Right.
And we want to get you the best price and get the best terms, but they're trying to do the exact same thing for their client. Anyway, and so what else was I going to mention?
Well, what if you buy through the listing agent? That's an inevitable question. Does it save you any money?
It does not save you money.
There you go.
As I mentioned before,
Right.
It's already set in a contract what's going to come out. Now, as a buyer's agent, we've been working with you. We understand exactly what you're looking for, and we're trying to meet those needs. Now, if you just go directly to a listing agent, and they're not going to help you with your needs. They don't understand what you want, and they're not really looking out for your best interest. So it'd be easy for them if you look like a good sale. That's it.
Right. It's just for them. I think the way I would characterize it is that to the listing agent, you're just a transaction. To us as the buyer's agent in this context, you're a client. We want to be your trusted advisor throughout all of this. And as is often happens, we spend so long together. We know closely what you need. That trusted advisor ends up becoming a friendship.
Well,
that's totally different from working with a listing
absolutely,
agent.
and I think that's the key there too. Is the word trust.
Right.
We share information with you. We educate you. We learn what you want. We develop a relationship here that we hopefully leads to a sense of trust. And from that, then you're making confident decisions. You know that someone's looking out for your best interest. And that's really the goal, because we want you to find the home you're looking for and for the best terms, price, etc., of course, but we also need the process to work in your favor.
Right, and then they have confidence that when you've written the offer, you've got the accepted offer, there's confidence that you bought the right home.
Absolutely.
And that only comes if you've worked closely with a buyer's agent. You don't get that if you work with anybody else.
No, the seller's agent is not going to be concerned with you that you got the right home
have
for
you bought the right
or you're
home,
in the
that's
right
kind of
area or anything like that.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so, the combination here of the buyer's agent and the client, that trusted advisor, that's the unbeatable. As Andrew said, advising you in terms of how to structure the offer, advising you about which home to buy, advising you about which homes to look in. I won't reverse them, but you get the idea. That's the key. You kind of bring those two sides together, you the client with the buyer's agent with that trusted advisor role. And then that's what ultimately will make this a successful transaction, because at the end of the day, we do want to buy a home, and this is what makes it successful, is the kind of combination of those two. That's the key. Right,
and I think it's mentioned here on this slide, but we're talking about not only what we talked about before, reading the market, valuing the home, but there's some negotiation process that typically happens. So you want someone who's experienced negotiating on behalf of a buyer to help you in that process, to make sure someone's looking out for your best interest. But also, then if you're having a home inspection, there are lots of issues can come up then, and especially a first-time home buyer might get a list of items that come up that sound really scary, but are actually very typical for any home. And in fact, any home you purchase, you're going to run into those exact same problems. So to have someone who's been through the process and helps put everything into context for you, so that you can move forward smoothly and feel confident in the steps you're taking. And then there's the rest of the steps along the way. As you said before, there's a lot of deadlines you have to meet, and we want to make sure we're guiding you, or making sure that everything that needs to be done is being done, and you're aware of it ahead of the time.
Cool. Buyer's agent versus listing agent. Always a key question that we get. What's the difference? How does it work? So we want to kind of cover that first of all. So it's a really competitive environment, and so you really want to be, if you're like, one step ahead of the competition. And when you think about homes, there's a couple of different strategies that can be followed here, and we want to kind of tease those out a little bit when we think about what smart buying is in this market.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, most buyers right now, turnkey is what you're looking for.
Move
right?
in ready.
Move in. I don't want to do work if possible, or work scares me, or I don't have time for it, whatever, or that's just what most people are looking for right now.
Yeah.
Something that's been renovated or just looks fresh and clean. Some people, though, want a home that they can maybe get a little more house in a sense, like more space, more yard, more the type of home they want, but for the price that they can afford, and then they can put in their own effort to fix it up, maybe renovate it a little bit, maybe just do something cosmetic at first, or do something serious down the road, but then have equity build up in that way. But so if it's not, and by the way, so we say expect a discount if it's not upgraded, and that's true because we see it every day. The homes that we list and even other people list, when they're well staged and well presented and they look great, those are the ones that are really commanding the more and more offers, and they're getting bid up, and not so much for the others.
Because this works in two ways. If I was giving a seller's presentation at this point, which I'm not, but assuming I was, what I would be saying is, buyers today want a home that is fresh and upgraded. So let's make your home look fresh and upgraded. If you don't want to do that, it's highly likely that the buyers will be a little bit reticent about buying it, and they're probably going to want a discount. Now, conversely, when you're on the buy side, if you're only looking at fresh and upgraded homes, guess what? This is where strategy number one comes in. There's competition, right? And you need to get comfortable with that. Right, we see it time and time again. Andrew, how many times have you been in a bidding war for a home that's beautifully presented?
Well, the easier question is how many times haven't I been?
Oh, there we go. Right, there we go.
I think that's zero. Then this is what we talked about earlier. So if it's a home that's well presented in an area, it's probably going to have a lot of a lot of offers on it.
Yep.
Essentially, I'll come down to it. I can say a lot of interest, but in reality, it's going to have a lot of offers on it. Right. And so that's another component of working with a good buyer's agent, is to be able to navigate through that bidding war, right here. So what we try to do is bring what we do, not try to do, what we do is we have a lot of experience with these, and so not everyone can present exactly the same offer. In fact, all offers are very different. So as I mentioned before, we want to leverage all that experience to your benefit, and then help you get that home right.
If you're going strategy number one.
Yeah, that's number one.
The conversely of that, of course, is strategy number two. No surprise there.
Yeah.
Right? Recognizing potential where others may not. No.
I actually love this.
Okay. And you love the before and afters are really good. So.
Yeah, they are. But I also say, just sort of from a personal point of view, I love architecture. I love space. I love design. It's one of the reasons I'm doing what I do, is I just love homes, and every time I walk into a home, I am looking at the potential of the home, even the ones that are done and look great. I can't help myself from looking at this, but so recognizing potential, and that's something that I can help people with, because some people just don't see things the same way.
The kitchen's not big enough. I can't buy the house.
I need another.
Hold on a minute, we can do something. Right?
I need another bedroom. This doesn't have enough bedrooms. Yes, it does, but this is an office. Yeah, you take the desk out. It's a bedroom.
Right.
But that's a very I'm joking. It's not that simple. But seriously though, understanding how a home can be transformed from anywhere from a cosmetic way to a more substantial way, and seeing past the things that are kind of destroying the vision.
Right.
Is that
the clutter?
I love to help people see what's available there. I love this too, because then inevitably, hopefully, if it's a home that looks like it fits all your needs except for a few things, and it doesn't look as good, you're likely to have a little less competition on that home, right?
That's the key.
And then you'll have less competition, so you have a better opportunity of getting that home. And if you do, then take some steps, and suddenly the things we tell sellers to do, all you have to do is do those few things, and now your home is worth a lot more.
And that's how you increase the equity.
And not even just, it's not all monetary though. Ultimately, what we want is we want it to be a place where you are happy to go home to at the end of the day, and drive into and open the door, etc. And be
definitely a win-win.
Yeah.
So here's the before and afters. We love the before and afters, as you can see.
Yes. Before.
Got to look past the clutter, right? As well as the wallpaper. Look past that.
Yeah.
Now, look what it looks like after we've done literally cosmetic updates. Nothing structural here, just cosmetics.
Boom.
Look at that. Now, think about the buyers in this perspective. The buyer with the updated home, they're going to be all over that. There's going to be competition for that. In fact, there was competition for this. I know the house, and there was competition for that. The other case, of course, there's less. But it is just simply paint. That's it.
I think we sand.
We may have redone the floors.
We may have sanded the floors and some paint.
That's it, and some paint. Take the wallpaper and paint.
Got the clutter out, and
there you go. Right.
Some nice staging.
Yep.
Look at that.
Kitchens do the same thing.
Yeah.
Paint the kitchen cabinets.
Again, remove the clutter. Now I know, for I don't know how many years now, stainless steel has been, but you know, this kitchen looks great in white like this, and maybe maybe you would rather do a much more intensive kitchen renovation at some point. But if this gets you into a home that you like, and you do just some paint,
right?
And now this is something you can live with
2 to 3
and enjoy
years later,
and make a plan to do the things you want to do.
Right, that's the key, right? Yeah. Here's another example of a kitchen.
Oh my, yeah.
Yeah, looks really dowdy, you know, but look, simply some paint, new
paint.
Vinyl on the floor there, and that's all there is.
Yeah, the vinyl, the man-made, even the wood components now. They used to look very fake, and now they look really good. They look really good. Yeah. This is painting some cabinets, putting down some new vinyl, and some new hardware on the
Yep, that's
on
all it was on the cabinets. You can do the same to bathrooms too. You can paint tile.
This is fantastic because, well, you see the light blue here, and of course we've seen from the same era, the yellow and pink, and it turns out there are products now that allow you to paint the tile, and this is what do we have here other than paint? Is there anything been done?
That's it. No, we just cleared the clutter and paint. Take down the wallpaper and just paint the walls, paint the tiles. That's it. I mean, that's the only difference.
Yeah, that's the only difference in this. It's not. I don't even think a light fixture was changed.
No, indeed. And then when you go to the next one, very similar. This case, the cabinet has actually been painted. So cabinet could have been replaced at relatively low cost, but in this case, it was just given a coat of paint. The tiles were painted, the cabinets were painted, the walls were painted too, and there you go. All of a sudden, you've gone from a bathroom that, I need to completely renovate it, to, okay, I can live with that bathroom.
Yeah,
that's the whole.
It'd be interesting to do these slides reverse and ask and say when do you think what year do you think this home was built based on this bathroom?
Yeah,
very different opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Here's another example. This was horrible carpet from recollection that was down. Carpet was removed. Everything's been painted clearly. Now clearly it's a totally different. You can live in the bedroom. You see there, whereas the old one, not so much.
No, the old one looks a little...
Yeah. And the impression that many buyers will have is that, I can't possibly live in this bedroom, and I'd have to do so much work to this bedroom to even be, before I even move in. The reality is, you've got multiple bedrooms here. Maybe you do it bedroom by bedroom. All was done here was rip the carpet out, put down some luxury vinyl tiles, those kind of wood tiles you were talking about,
right,
and a coat of paint. It's a relatively quick exercise to do, and you can see the difference is dramatic.
Yeah, I don't know, is that wallpaper on that, or is that paint?
Oh, I don't know, it's hard to tell, isn't it, really?
People think that's a big job, but these guys come in and or women, or whoever come in, and they have that'll be gone in an hour.
Yeah, absolutely, it doesn't take them very long at all.
No, this project can be done in quick time for relatively short money. Yep. Transformative.
Right.
And speaking of transformative, let's talk about the exterior here. Curb appeal. What do we do? Okay. If you're, for those of you watching at home, you can, pick it out. But it's just really those shrubs are gone that are blocking that home, and some paint.
That's it. You can see a dramatic difference.
Dramatic.
It turns out the backstory to this one is that the blue and the plum and the beige color that you see there, that one had sat on the market for probably 18 months, not selling. Did the exterior work, did some work on the inside too. It sold for competing offers the first weekend we brought it on the market. Right. So a dramatic difference. Imagine you'd been able to buy the before, after it being on the market for 12 months, you would have definitely got it at a discount.
Oh,
Guess what? Once it was just smartened up slightly, that discount no longer exists.
yes.
You
On
paid
the
$1
left,
for
at some
it.
point, the seller on the left,
Yep.
when it was listed with the, they were hoping, they're like, how much am I going to get close to what I'm asking for?
Right.
And as a buyer, that's a great situation.
Yep.
Versus on the right, the second photo, it's
How much do I have to pay?
now it's, the buyers are saying, how much do I going to have to pay? Do I going to have to bid on this? And the sellers are going to sit back and look at the offers.
And they did. So, here's a situation where a buyer missed out because they couldn't see past what you see there on the right.
So essentially, there are opportunities.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Here's another great opportunity.
Right, we have one more here.
Yeah. Look at the trees on the outside, and imagine how dark
I was going to say
the inside of that house would have been.
Right, you walk in and take a look at this house, and it probably didn't have a great feel.
It did, dark and dingy. Get rid of those trees. I mean, in fact, you would never know, but there's a door here. You would never know there was a second entrance there, would you? I mean, that's the key, and it made the house, first of all, it looks great from the outside, but it looks great from the inside because all of a sudden you've got that natural light coming in.
Addition by subtraction.
Right.
This was, right, so this looks here like, this makes the exterior look great. Well, guess what? It also makes the interior look fantastic. Yeah, it makes it feel more livable.
So, we can give sellers these slides and say you really should remove the trees. You could give it a coat of paint. That would be the advice to the seller. And that's from a buyer's perspective, is if the seller hasn't done that, this is a potential opportunity.
Right.
So don't dismiss because you see, the house is really dark. Hold on a minute, go chop the trees down. All of a sudden it becomes light again based on this. So there are opportunities out there, as you said, Andrew, that, there's potential here.
Right.
And these, in this environment, will not have the same competition as this house does here. And that might be the winning strategy to get you into your home that you really want.
Right. And again, so that's the kind of thing when working with a buyer's agent who really understands your needs, but also understands opportunities and can present them to you in a way that you can make a educated decision.
Right. Because it may not be that, the cosmetics are easy to advise on, but what if the flow is wrong? Now, the flow is wrong, that's harder to fix or more expensive to fix. What if the location doesn't work? What if it's on a busy street and you really would like to be in, a quiet cul-de-sac? Those you can't change, clearly. So all we've shown you here is those cosmetic things. You still need to have a focus very much on, the basics, if you like, the fundamentals of the home, and not end up, just because it's being offered as a discount, just happens to be on a really busy street, you need to factor that one in, irrespective of the condition, in fact, in that case. So.
Yeah, the needs.
Right.
What are the needs?
Yep. So, how about searching? So, how do I find that one home out of hundreds?
Right.
In Arlington, 500 homes, Lexington, 500 homes, Winchester has the same number, Belmont's at about 300 homes a year. So, there's a lot of homes coming on the market. How do I find the one that's right for me?
Okay. Well, we have, I think, a best practices slide up now. And so engage a buyer's agent. Voila, what we've been talking about. And we talk about your needs, the minimum needs, the things that you need to have, bar none. There are a lot of wants out there, and of course we're going to try and get those for you, or find them for you. Maybe they're hidden, like in these other homes. And separate out the wants, the needs, and then to get that price point going. Understanding, working with that lender, understanding what you can afford, but then also develop a budget. Like maybe you don't want to spend that much, or maybe you shouldn't in terms of being competitive in this market. And then we want to find out, once we understand what your needs are and things we're talking about before, location, commute, schools, etc. We want to try and narrow down your search a little bit. And better we can do that, then we can focus on towns and get you educated in those towns and really, really key in on things. And so what we do is we'll set up in a search in MLS, and MLS is, for those of you who don't know, it's it's the database where all the homes that are for sale are kept. It's the one that feeds all the sites that a lot of people look at, the realtor.coms, etc.
Yep.
So it's the basis of all this information. So we check those constantly. We research the towns. We have a lot of data. You can look for it yourself on our website. We have lots of good information. But certainly one thing I like to do with buyers is then sit down, and now we do it over Zoom, but to go through and research those towns and kind of get an understanding of all the data in addition to what it's like to live there. So
right, and we say attend open houses this year. Open houses are not as prevalent as they were previously. There certainly is not the go out on a Saturday and Sunday as a social activity to go through them. But one thing you can do, and specifically you can do in the early part of the spring market, is go and look at the neighborhoods. Go look at the towns when there's low inventory. And I used to describe to buyers, imagine your hands are in your pocket. You're window shopping, that's all you are. Because you're trying to understand which of those towns you actually want to be in. And just drive around, get a feel for the neighborhood. Do you want to be in Carlisle, very rural? Do you want to be in Arlington, a little bit more urban? There's a lot of differences between the different towns. So drive around while there's very few homes on the market. Don't feel compelled to go see homes that I've got to buy. This is just, an educational exercise. And, sometimes what we ask buyers to do is go pick 3-4 towns, 5 or 6, but narrow it down at the end of it down to that 1 to 3 towns. I think that's a manageable number.
it's a very manageable number, and I think a lot of people some people know what they want. They say, I want to be in this town, and that's what we're looking for. Other people want to be in an area, so we're looking at 1 to 3 towns, right? So, but also, so that's the best. But don't feel confined to that. So you could start researching a town and then find out that we're just not finding what you want there, and it's not there. So we'll expand the search. We can adjust on this, but ideally, by the time you find the home you want, we find that we've typically narrowed it down to 1 to 3 towns. Is how that works
in the end.
Yeah, and sort of we like to evaluate all the homes with you, and not just the home itself, but all the other aspects of it. How it fits, not only how it fits within the market, but also looking at the neighborhood. Maybe like you were saying, different towns. Some people want a rural town, some people want a more urban town, but maybe some people want to be within a walking distance to the center of town, and other people just want to be spread out, or they want to be near a hiking trail or whatever. So all these things are factors that, and I think this is a very emotional process for buyers, and especially in times like this where maybe people aren't getting the first home they look at and feeling a little like they need to get something. Then they start to, the needs and the wants list kind of shifts a little bit. But having sort of a good buyer's agent to sort of remind you of things and talk about, well, this is what was important to you before. Is that still important to you? And or is that shifted? Is that really shifted? And what do you want? And pointing out the different factors so that you're not making a decision just because of an emotion that maybe you wouldn't make if you took a step back. So that's another thing we like to do, is just make sure you're very comfortable with the decision. So all this working with buyers beforehand is really important in so that there isn't buyer's remorse in the sense. You're really happy with where you've ended up.
You shifted your criteria. I can't buy what I want with 3 bedrooms. I'll go down to 2. Well, hold on a minute. Is 2 going to be enough for you? Well, no, not really. So maybe you should be back at 3. Maybe we should shift towns. So there's all that kind of conversation you can have with buyers in terms of their shifting priorities based on what's happening.
Right, and it's also, I want to point out too, is obviously it's important to what we're doing right now to find you a home, but make me, I'm going to decide to go to a 2-bedroom instead of a 3-bedroom. Well, 5 years or 7 years, when you go to sell that home, or maybe your lifestyle has changed, maybe there's a new family, like suddenly that's not the right place for you. But also, what's the resale value going to be of that property? So you're also got to think a little bit about the future in that case too. Yeah,
you do. We've got lots of information on our website which will help you with this, and I always like to give you a quick overview of sales distribution, because this is, you can do a lot of it without leaving your own home if you like. And so one of the sets of information we have on our website is the sales distribution, which is the number of homes that sell in a given price point in a given town. And so the usefulness of this is I'll show you the distribution here for Arlington, and I'm going to juxtaposition it with a different town in a moment. If you're at that 700,000 price point, you've got 72 homes to choose from. That's a good price point to be. If I show you the equivalent graph for the next town out, which is Lexington, you can see that in the 700,000s, it's only 27. And so this is a very useful way to kind of bring towns in, for example. Yes, you should be looking in Arlington, or if you're looking in Lexington at 700,000, maybe you should expand your search to include towns which have a larger number of home sales in that price bracket in order for you to be successful. And so you can use this information to kind of bring towns in. You can exclude as well if you've got $2 million to spend. Excuse me, that's right. $2 million, maybe you ought not to be in Arlington, whereas $2 million in Lexington, clearly it's a great price point to be in. So this is, I think, a useful way to kind of bring in new towns perhaps, or exclude towns because they just don't fit your budget, or what you can buy for your money, or just aren't enough homes for sale at that price point.
Right. And even not only for buying, but again, what I mentioned before, the future, what are you going to do? Like if you spent $2 million in a town that sells,
here's an example, right?
That sells
one
home, and then you turn around and maybe you have a job change or something. You have to, you're moving to the West Coast, and now you have to put that home in the market. The buyer pool for that is not going to be big.
Yep. So you can glean a lot from this information. There's a lot more on the website too, but we thought we'd just kind of show you the sales distribution as it's a useful tool at this point in the process. But there's a lot more on the website that our buyers agents and Andrew can talk you through about just doing that comparison between different towns in the area. So I've kind of gone through all of this. I found the home that I want.
Yes.
Now let's get serious. Let's write that offer. So we thought it would be useful to just at a very high level talk you through the offer process, and then we'll tease out some of the key components of this as we go through. But this is a very high level. There's a lot going on here. We can spend a long time talking through all of these different pieces, but we wanted to give you a quick overview of the offer process. How does it work?
Well, so an offer has certain components to it, and a lot of them have to do with financial, so it's money, how much you're going to pay for the home, and then there's contingencies such as a home inspection, or if you're getting a mortgage contingency, and then there are of course the dates assigned with that. So when are all these things going to happen? So the whole process is, so typically when someone puts in an offer, you're going to write a check to bind the offer. And really, so you could write an offer, and this is important to know, and have a seller accept it, but there needs to be something that contractually binds that offer, and that in this case is money. So a deposit, and typically what we see in the market is someone writes a check for $1,000, and once that's delivered and the offer is signed, both those things happen, then you have an accepted offer.
You bought a home.
You're kind of. You're on your way to buying a home.
Right. That's what
in Massachusetts. There are more steps. There's what's called a purchase and sale agreement, which typically happens 7 to 10 days afterward. It can be sooner, but we can get into that later. If there's an inspection contingency, that would happen before the purchase and sale happens. So people try to do it as quickly as possible in 5 to 7 days. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but we always recommend having a home inspected. But we can get into more details of how that happens, when that happens in this current conditions, is changing that up a little bit. But let's just say in the standard form, someone gets a home inspection, that's going to cost them $500 to $1,000. It really depends on the size of the home, the inspector you get, and what they do is they give you a full report on it, and if there are problems that seem overwhelming that just doesn't make this a feasible home, then that's the contingency that you can get out of the deal and walk away from it. But if you get to the purchase and sale agreement, that's usually it's after the home inspection. So anything that's happened there has been worked out, if there's anything, or everything went fine. And at that point, you'll be putting down money, just so this is something you need to know ahead of time. We always tell our clients ahead of time to be, so they're prepared. What happens, Typically at a purchase and sale, people are putting down 5% of the purchase price, maybe less that $1,000.
Yep.
Okay, and then other factors you got to put in there. You're going to have attorney costs, so you want to hire an attorney. Massachusetts, you need an attorney, and you want one anyway to look out for your best interest in how that purchase and sale agreement is written, so that it doesn't favor the seller. It takes both parties into account, because the seller will have their attorney as well.
Right.
And then there's going to be some closing costs with that, which will be included in the contract.
The key thing here is, and we've seen this a number of times, within a relatively short period of time, perhaps 5-10 days, you're going to need to find 5% of the offer price. So what you've agreed to buy the house for. That's a substantial amount of money if you think about, $1 million home, $50,000. And you really need to have that money before you start this process. We've had the situation before where the money wasn't in the country, they didn't have access to it, it wasn't liquid. And all of a sudden they realized, well, before I can write an offer, I need 5% in 10 days. I can't get it in 10 days. And so as you get serious about looking for homes, and certainly you've kind of gone through this process and now you're ready to buy the home, it's important to have that money available in liquid form, because it does happen quite quickly. You go from accepted offer to inspection to purchase and sale. You can be there in a week and a half quite easily, and there's a substantial amount of money that's needed, 5%, to do that. And so if that money's overseas, I had the situation last year where it was in France. I can't write the offer because it will take about 3 weeks to get the money over here. Kind of get that out of the way before you even start. So it's a real problem. If the money isn't here, get it all ready to go. I know we had the situation with some other buyers last year. The money was in China. They couldn't get it over fast enough. You really do need to get everything in place before you really are in the position to be able to write an offer.
Right, and sometimes the purchase and sale is happening oftentimes in a shorter amount of time.
Yep, that's right.
And
Yep.
I think a lot of buyers are under the impression, yes, I do have this money available, but then it turns out it's not like going to the bank because it's in an investment fund or something, and it takes X amount of business days. Oh, and we got to include the weekend, and next thing you know,
all right, can't have the money.
Can't
it
have
has to be really available,
Exactly.
not just available.
Right.
So we're at purchase and sale. How does this process continue? We're almost there with it. There are only a few more steps at this high level anyway.
Right. So if you're getting a mortgage, so you've had a mortgage contingency, so you have to officially apply for a mortgage. Now, you've done all this work ahead of time if you're working with a lender and you're getting a loan. So hopefully we've recommended a good lender. Well, if we recommend it, should be a good lender.
Right.
But you've worked with this person, they understand your numbers, you have a pre-approval letter. But one of the contingencies in here to get it is that you're getting a mortgage, that you have to officially fill out a full application for a mortgage. And usually that's 1 day after the purchase and sale, you will do this, or 1 business day after the purchase and sale. If it's a Friday, you could say it's one business.
Yep.
Provided you submit that full application to your lender, and then there'll be a contingency date. There'll be a period of time where then the lender, once you've filled out that application, will then process that and then send you a letter of commitment saying, we are going to give you this loan. And that can take 4 weeks. I've seen it 3 weeks. I've seen it in 2 weeks. But in this market, it's taking at least 3 weeks. One reason is just getting the appraisers out there. Yep. It's taking a long time to do that. And underwriting and things are so busy now, 3 to 4 weeks makes sense. And then you're going to get a commitment from your lender that, yes, you're clear to buy this home. Now, if there's a case, once you get that, that's good news for everyone involved. But if for some reason something happens in the meantime and you don't get that, because you have that contingency in there, now you have a method of opting out of the deal, and also saving you the deposit, that 5% you put down at the purchase and sale. Then you will be able to recoup that and then move on with the process, right?
Buy a cheaper home.
Yeah, exactly.
If they've denied you at this number, maybe they'll approve you.
Right. But assuming you get the loan as expected, then you're off to close probably in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as a non-refundable deposit in Massachusetts. Everything's refundable so long as you abide by the rules. As I said, the inspection, you can get your initial deposit back, perhaps $1,000. And then when you're at mortgage contingency, you get your money back if you are unable to get financing. You cannot, and we wanted to kind of emphasize this, you can't change your mind at mortgage contingency point. It is the bank denying you financing, and so you can't change your mind. So if you don't change your mind, you kind of follow the rules. There's no such thing as a non-refundable deposit here. Everything's returned as long as you abide by the rules.
Yeah, as long as you officially apply by the date you said you would apply.
Right.
And
the bank denies.
And the bank denies you, and you inform them inform the seller by the time in the contract. We
should add that we kind of emphasize this, but it's very rare for banks to deny financing. It's very rare that we've seen that, but it's there. It's a protection for you. I mean, it's an important one because at this point, 5%, that's $50,000 per $1 million home, is on the line. So there's a lot of money potentially on the line. And when you think about the average price in an Arlington, it's almost $1 million. Average price here in Lexington is about 1.4. So clearly there's a lot of money on the line. So,
yeah. And because of that, I think we're emphasizing this point because there is a lot of money. So we want you to understand the consequences. But this isn't to frighten anyone because this is, as long as you follow the rules, this rarely happens. But as long as we're paying attention, that's part of our job here is to make sure you're aware of all these deadlines, that this is highly unlikely to happen.
The one that's the bit of a challenge is, of course, the inspection, right? Because every home has some issues. I think it's fair to say, Andrew.
New construction
even has issues. Right, absolutely.
Every home has issues. No home is. I've been on countless inspections, and a lot of them start off with no home is perfect. Just I want to set expectations here that there is going to be some things wrong here, but it's like what is normal? What is expected versus what is something where you have to step back and say, oh no, we need to either discuss this with the seller, either to get something fixed or to maybe get some money off the deal or to back out, right?
Right.
So, but that's also part of our job too. Is
very much so.
I'm not here to tell you if a house is, but looking at it, and you get the inspection report back and shows, it's to put things in context and help to understand what.
And negotiate, as you said before.
And then negotiate what needs to be negotiated.
Right, yeah. We wanted to give a high level, there's a lot of, the devil's in the detail with the inspection strategy. It's kind of a challenging piece. But we wanted to give you a quick overview of the three main strategies, just to give you a sense of kind of how they play out. There's a lot more detail to this, and that's where the buyer agent brings that expertise to the table, because which strategy you use depends very much on the circumstance, on the house, a lot of different criteria you use when deciding which is the right strategy.
Right. So traditionally, you put in a home inspection contingency, and then you go in and all the things we said, you go through a report, and then you work out with the seller if anything comes up or not. But again, as I think is pointed out in the slide, that's really then the seller is taking some risk here.
Right.
Because they say, well, we've agreed to this, and oh boy, I hope this works out, that nothing big comes up or anything concerning, because the last thing they want to do is put the house back on the market. Right. That's going to have a negative effect.
That doesn't end well. It really ends well coming back on the market. Because the first question any buyer's agent or any buyer's going to ask is, what happened? What's wrong? I mean, that's the question they're going to ask. Rightly so too.
Yeah. Or they'll just make assumptions about that something's wrong when maybe perhaps there wasn't so much wrong, but from a buyer's perspective, it seemed very wrong.
Yeah, or they were poorly advised. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So waiving the inspection, well, who wouldn't like that if you're a seller? But then as a buyer, you're taking all the risk on yourself. And who knows what could be wrong with it. You don't want to end up with a house that's full of termites and it's falling down, or just things that you didn't understand that are really costly things. So another option then is to put in an inspection contingency with a dollar amount of, say, we will absorb as a buyer anything on the inspection that, well, I think we put it was at $10,000 on the slide. Yeah. So anything under that aggregate up to $10,000, we're fine with that. So essentially, you're willing to pay $10,000 more.
Not nickel and dime, basically.
Not nickel and dime. Yeah, it's not about replacing screens and
Yep,
things like
exactly.
that. But this is more like the roof's falling in, and by the way, the AC doesn't work anymore, and there's a few things come up. So then you can negotiate. So that's fair to both parties in a sense, because now the seller doesn't have to worry about being nickel and dimed, as you say. But anything major comes up, it's a reasonable negotiation.
So kind of high level, what the inspection strategies are. There's an awful lot of detail. Which one do you use? How do you mitigate the risk in some of these circumstances? Devil's in the detail, and that's really the key strength of a buyer's agent, is being able to navigate the inspection, which is often quite fraught as you kind of go through there, because a buyer wants a perfect home and a seller thinks their home is perfect, and those two are not necessarily aligned, as you can imagine. Right? It's not aligned. So
Right.
financing. I mean, what are the kind of things to think about in financing? We've talked a lot about some of it already, but how do you make it competitive when you're thinking about that financing? Some strategies here as well, of course.
Right. So we talked about appraisals before, and the bank sends out for an appraisal. And so the market value of a home in terms of what people are buying the home is not correlate directly to what an appraisal is. The bank sends an appraiser, and they have a certain set of criteria, and they're looking at items and checking off their boxes that they need to do, which are very important. So the value that comes back to the bank may be different than what the home has been agreed to purchase for, right?
Yep.
So that's the value they're looking at as a bank, is what is this appraised value at, and then how much money am I lending you? So that's the loan to value ratio. So how much are you borrowing? So that that determines the risk the bank is taking on this home, correct? And so the higher your down payment is, the lower that risk is for not only the lender, but also in terms of a seller. They're saying, I don't really have to worry as much about the appraisal, or I don't have to worry so much about this person actually getting the loan.
Yeah. One thing around the appraisal, the appraised value is what the bank lends against. So if you offer $700,000 for a home, in the end, the appraisal comes in a little bit lower than that. The bank will lend you 80% if you're an 80% borrower on the appraised value, not the offer value. That's the key. They look at that appraised value. They don't really care what you offered for the home. They care what the appraiser values that home at. That's what they lend against, and that's where the situation where the appraised value can be lower than the offer value. That's where the challenges arise, and the buyer in this case perhaps needs to bring more money to the closing table to offset that lower appraisal.
It can happen.
A lot to talk about there,
Yeah.
as you're kind of sitting down and how to mitigate against that. One way, as Andrew said there, around not going to the max in your pre-approval may well be that you have a little bit in reserve to compensate or be able to bring to the table with that potential for a lower appraisal. So another reason not necessarily to take your buy to the max of your pre-approval, may you scale it back a little bit, be a little bit more conservative.
Right, and the appraised value typically does, a lot of times will come in less. Like even on we did a refinance on our home, and I saw what the appraisal came in at, and I'm pretty confident that if I were to put it on the market, it would probably sell for more than that. So just as a buyer, if you get that appraisal back and say, is this home really only worth this, and I'm spending this much for it? Having a good buyer's agent saying, you've looked at all the competition in the market and what it's like, to understand that what the value of the home is, to give you confidence that yes, this is the right decision to move forward with.
Right. I often ask about closing costs. It's hard to give an exact number, but I thought we'd just kind of add a few components of closing costs here.
Yeah. I think we point out, of course, there's like anything else, there's 100 tools online you could probably find to do these things, and their closing costs differ depending on your location. So, but I know here in Massachusetts, for instance, we have tax stamps which we put in there. But if you're getting the lender has their own fees that you actually pay for the appraiser that goes out there if they have to do a survey or something like that. If you're getting a loan, I believe it's 80% is the threshold. If you're getting a loan, if your loan to value is greater than 80% of the purchase price, then you pay mortgage insurance on it. But then once you get to a point where that loan to value ratio changes, then you can get that taken off. So it's not necessarily throughout the life of the loan. Homeowners insurance, you need to have homeowners insurance. The lender requires that, of course, because they want to protect their investment. Title insurance, that's good to have. That ensures that the title, that you own the house, that there won't be some conflict down the road that someone else has a claim on the home. The tax stamps we mentioned before, so that's based on a percentage of the
Massachusetts tax.
Some homes, have oil tanks. So if the seller just filled the oil tank, well, they're going to pass that cost on in the closing costs. It'll be you'll pay for that too. Taxes, you pay taxes quarterly, so you pay 3 months worth of taxes. Perhaps you're only 2 months into that, so now you'll do a reimbursement for that 1 month, and that'll all come out on the closing and what they call the HUD.
Right. The key thing with closing costs, and I've had lenders tell me, is this: there are a lot of calculators online which will give you a broad number, give you a kind of broad brush, a good estimate, but your lender will give you a much more accurate one. So be cautious with some of these closing cost calculators. It will definitely give you an order of magnitude cost anyway, which kind of think about having that money in reserve when you get to the closing table. But the lender can help you with all of these things too, in terms of giving you a much more accurate number in terms of what that closing cost will actually be.
Right, and you should, the truth in lending.
Right. Now,
there's a while back a law enacted, so a lot of times what you'll be given by a lender is sort of a calculation on what this is going to cost you, and that's, there are variables that they have to stay within, so it's usually pretty close to that. So you should have a good idea before closing.
Andrew mentioned that, guess what, you need an attorney in Massachusetts. That's not true in all. We don't have title companies, as many states do. You have attorneys in Massachusetts. So you need those to actually close on a home in the state.
Yeah. Right. So obviously the buyer, they have a bank, and you have a buyer who's working. You have an attorney who's looking out at the purchase and sale point aspect to make sure the deal is fair and it doesn't favor the seller. But then the bank's going to have an attorney, because they want to make sure all those documents are signed correctly and exactly how they're supposed to be. And a lot of times that is the same person.
Yes, and that's going to lower your costs.
Yeah.
One attorney is cheaper than 2 attorneys, as it comes down to. No surprise there, of course. We do recommend a real estate attorney, though. I mean, be cautious that you don't use any attorney. Use a real estate attorney.
Oh, absolutely.
No question about that.
I know a lot of people have friends who are attorneys, and maybe they've done a little, but that's great. But really, you want someone who does this. This is their job. This is not a small item you're buying here. You want to make sure this person is adept in what they're doing. So we have, again, if you don't have someone, we're happy to recommend people again who our clients have really had worked well with and have given great feedback about. So we want to share that with you.
Right, definitely. So we're going to finish up with a little discussion around buying during COVID. Now, bear in mind, this is a work in progress. We know where we were in 2020. We think we know where we are in the beginning of 2021, similar to 2020. This will change as the year progresses, no doubt. Things will begin to kind of loosen up, specifically when we all start to get the vaccination and so on. So reading this today, it may well be different in 3-4 months' time as things begin to return to normal. But we thought we'd give you a quick overview of what's happening during COVID around the kind of things which are different today, but say definitely a work in progress.
Right, and and I think you're right, absolutely right. It is most likely to change.
Over no question.
As we progress through getting through this pandemic. So about a year ago, March.
Don't remind me. It was a year ago, by the way. Yes,
it was. I think it was. I think it was actually exactly a year ago.
About a year ago.
I remember the last open house I held.
Yeah, which would have been in March 2020.
Yes. And it's not been the same, of course, as most people know. masks, you gotta wear masks. Some people are doing open houses, some people are not doing any open houses, some people are doing some sort of mix. It's a challenge, and I think open houses in general have been a real challenge, especially how they're handled, because how many people are showing up for these? How are you walking home? Who's managing this whole process?
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Huge amount of variability.
I found some people do a mix where they but it's also hard to show homes. Just to set up a schedule, because the owners need to be out of the home for a period of time and all that. So there were times where people would just leave maybe for a weekend, and then you could do scheduled showings and maybe do some open houses. But really, it's a difficult situation, and that's another thing, to be able to navigate that, to try and set up a time where, as a buyer, you can go see a home in a good environment and make that a comfortable process for you as best we can. But we can't control how the listing agent or the sellers do that.
Right, and so open houses, a real challenge. And so what we prefer is private showings. I mean, that's the key, right? That's the right way to do it.
Ideal. That's the way we've been doing it for the
last 12 months, actually. For that
yes,
matter, yeah.
Exactly, and find out it's better for everyone involved. And the other way to do this too is ahead of time. Even before you go look at a home, right. There are a lot of, hopefully, if people are doing the work, we try and do our best with it. Right. Is having all these digital assets out there. Is not only do you want just the photographs and a floor plan, but maybe there's a real 3D tour where you can actually walk through the home. Maybe looking at the area, like just sitting down and looking at what's in the area online, and going through this whole process, and then so that you can make a decision on whether you want to actually take that step to go visit it, or whether it be a private showing, or unfortunately in some cases you have to try and make it at an open house.
And I think this is two things from this that are different today than they were 12 or 18 months ago. We track how many people view the digital media, the 3D tour, the video, and so on. And what's clear is that when a home comes on the market, traditionally it's a Thursday and Friday, many views of that digital media. Buyers looking at those digital assets and saying, yes, is a home I want to see, or no, it's not. They're making that decision about whether to go view the home, hopefully with the restricted showings. That's our preference. Perhaps they have to go to open houses in some other cases, but they're making that decision on Thursday and Friday. The number of views of that digital media drops on Saturday and Sunday, but picks up Sunday evening into Monday as the buyers who've looked at it now think, I want to have another look at that home based on the digital media to decide if I want to write the offer. And so be prepared and work with the buyer's agent on that Thursday and Friday, specifically via Zoom. Everybody can Zoom today. Yeah. That's the ideal opportunity to talk through each of those homes that have come on the market that fit your broad criteria to decide which ones you're going to see. Doing that on a Thursday and Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday actually going to see them. That seems to be the way it's kind of playing out right now. And I think that will probably continue, given that you can't go to all the open houses that are on the market just because why wouldn't I? It's a nice day on Saturday, why don't I just go and see them? That's not what buyers are doing. They're spending Thursday and Friday deciding which ones meet their criteria and then going to see those. So it's not uncommon to have 60 or 70 private showings on Saturday and Sunday because they've done all that work up front. Right,
and I'd say that's another critical role that we play as a buyer's agent, is understanding the needs that you're looking for and the wants, and then when these homes come on the market, is to be able to sort of evaluate these quickly and go over them with you, because these time slots might disappear very quickly. So you want to make a decision. Actually, they always do.
Yeah.
Some homes that are listed have lots of times, but those disappear. But some people only have a few options left, and some people are only doing an open house. So maybe evaluating whether to actually just bother with the open house or not, or to make a quick decision. Yes, we definitely want to see this, and then get one of those appointments before they're slotted.
Absolutely. Financing. This, I think, is a work in progress. I think we did see some lower appraisals last year. First time we've seen it for a long time in the towns we work in. I'm hoping this one, the appraisal problem disappears anyway.
Yeah,
I'm hoping so.
Yeah, it's an issue, and I don't want to disparage appraisers. You say sometimes drive-by. I literally witnessed that happen one time. But I don't. That's not the norm. But there is a potential for appraisals to come in low, as you say. It is slowing down the loan process. I mentioned before, even people who have worked with lenders and have gone through their whole underwriting process, which is a much further step, they still have to wait to get that, appraisal in, and they want 3 weeks for it, when in a different time period that may have been less than 2 weeks.
Yeah. So financing, be flexible, I think is fair to say.
Yes.
Slow loan processing came along as well, or slower loan processing, came along because interest rates are so low that a large number of existing homeowners decided to refi. So to some extent it overwhelmed the lenders, because they had to accommodate true home buyers, but also the refis as well. And so that really did slow loan processing down when everybody was figuring out how to work from home as well. So combination of overloaded banks as well as working from home definitely slowed down loan processing. And we did get the situation last year that there were a higher than normal number of closings were pushed out just because the banks couldn't get it processed fast enough. So be some flexibility in terms of that. Kind of wrapping that whole thing up, what does virtual home buying mean? I guess everything we've talked about, but... Yeah,
so like we were just talking about when homes are coming on the market, now that we've had this, we have a virtual consultation probably initially to go through all those steps we talked about, understanding what you're looking for, narrowing down a hometown, understanding the statistics of that town and where your criteria fit, and then, but also virtual consultations then on these Thursdays and Fridays where we can get online on a Zoom and then evaluate the homes that have come on that may be appealing or we want to eliminate, and then we look through all the assets they do. They have that 3D tour and go through all these things. So that's one huge piece is that we used to do in person, and we no longer do that. Electronic signatures, well, that's pretty common these days. That was happening before the pandemic, but certainly it's just very commonplace right now. So pretty much everything is done online now. And so the other thing that happens is, we were talking about inspections. Some of them can be done virtually. It depends on the home inspector. Maybe the home inspector is fine with the buyer being there, fine with the agent, but maybe they're not. So that doesn't mean they're going to do the exact same job for you. It'll just might involve virtually going over their report and walking through things. Sometimes they video things correct. And what else do we want to talk about? Oh, the buying dashboard. We have an app that shows you what's going on with the transaction once you've got an accepted offer, all the different steps, and it kind of makes sure you're on track as it kind of moves through to do that too. So that's what the buying dashboard is, a way for you to make sure you understand what those key dates are. You can see what's happened, and you also know what's coming up, and it gives you sort of immediate feedback. Sometimes you want to understand what happened, and maybe your agent is busy with something for some reason. Maybe check the app, and that might give you the information you need. The showing restrictions, of course. So in those cases, just being able, you still have to do things virtually.
What we talked about just a minute ago.
Yeah, and even you're doing a virtual open house.
We do that as well. So we get the listing agent to walk around the home as if they were showing a buyer the home. Normally the 3D tour in the video doesn't open closets and things like that. What we do with the virtual open house is with the listing agent walks around, opens the closets, give you a running commentary while they're walking around looking at everything about the home as if you were there. And this is another one of those tools that you use during that virtual consultation, deciding whether you do or do not want to see that home.
Exactly. So that's a great feature. So the more, unfortunately not everyone does this, but it really is an asset to go through in this whole process, where you can sit down, not only just look again at a floor plan and some photos, to really get in there and get into the nooks and crannies and kind of get more of a feel, more perspective. It's obviously it's not like walking through the home, but certainly it gives you a lot more context. It gives you perspective. Now that you're seeing a person in a room, to understand how large a room is, etc. And then the other thing is everything's done electronically now for the at the registry when you close on a property.
Yep. Everything's done that.
No one. It used to be they would send the attorney would have a paperwork, and they would send a runner, and they would go to the registry, and then they go get in line, and you hope they got there in time to get
That way
registered.
you sit in the registry and do the signing all the paperwork, but
No,
that's over. Thank goodness for that.
All done.
I never like going to the registry anyway.
No, there's never parking.
No, it was horrible. It's in Cambridge if you're in Middlesex County, and it was never easy to. And it's it's so much easier to do e-recording. I have to say,
absolutely.
much easier. So, given all of that, what's our commitment to you as a buyer's agent? Kind of wrapping up this whole thing.
Yes, we've gone on a little bit, but just to quickly go through this, it's we want obviously education is really important. You make a good decision when you're educated. And we want to give you good advice, and it's easier when you understand the advice, you're going to make a smart decision versus just taking something in blind faith and hope it's right. We want to really educate you. And we want to help you with your financing options, so set you up with a good lender, and then look at that and then decide how are we going to work within that. And then of course, find the home you want that fits your needs, and hopefully gets as many wants as you like. Yes, arranging showings, but this is a lot more complex now. And again, timing is key, so we want to be on top of that. Evaluating properties, so we want to be able to evaluate those virtually, but also when you go there and having
person too.
Using all the data available and experience, just put it on there and strategize, and then to strategize the offer. So again, seems simple, dollar amounts and dates, maybe a couple of contingencies. Guess what?
No, it's much more complex than that.
Much more complex, and getting that offer to stand out in front of a seller and hopefully get you to the finish line. By getting, it's all those 40, 50 steps that along the way that will get you there. And the idea is to do it in a way that we've gained, hopefully you understand that we're really, really work in your best interest and gain that trust, because we want to, over here with our whole team, we work with integrity. We are ethical in all the decisions we make, and just want you to understand that so that you have someone on your side that's working in your best interest. And really, that's it.
That's it. So, thank you for joining us this evening. If you have any questions, please reach out to Andrew. He can answer all of those questions for you. So with that, I will say goodbye from Marcus, and
I will say goodbye from Andrew.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye-bye.